I'm in the Portland State area. I'm on the right track. I'm trying to get to 5th and Hall. I didn't pass Hall, did I? No. PSU. I never went here, but I've known so many people that went here and hung out with those people here that I almost kind of feel like I'm an honorary student. But I actually haven't been here in a while. And I think I'm about 2 blocks off from where I want to be, up along Hall. And so while I'm on my way to the location of today's Historic Murders of Portland episode specifically, I just want to say that today's story does involve a child. I'm letting you know that now, so in case, if you're really sensitive to that sort of thing, harm done to children, I'm telling you right now, that is in this story. So if that really bothers you, I would strongly recommend skipping this episode. There's lots of other episodes in this series to watch, and very seldomly do they involve children specifically. So I'm giving you that warning now before we go in, so that you can consider yourself warned. So that being said, there's, in the kind of Portland State part of downtown, which is kind of on the southern edge, there's these kind of cool old apartments buildings that are kind of mixed in here, like the Harrison Court, and some, a lot of apartment buildings in this area have been transitioned into housing for students, some of which are getting demolished over time, sadly, but there's lots of old apartment buildings in and around the Portland State campus that have been altered to be used for housing, so they still are finding significance. And I don't think there may be students that live in this place, but the place I'm trying to get to is at the northeast corner of 5th and Hall. So it's right here in the middle of the university hubbub, but it's not specifically student housing. I don't think. I've never seen official documentation that says that's not the case. It's just right next to the college, so there may be some students living there may be not. And this building right here is the place I'm trying to get to as the site for this new episode of Historic Murders of Portland. So this is 5th and Hall right here. This is 5th Avenue. Hall is the crossing street. Right over here is the 5th Avenue Cinema, where I've actually screened some of the movies I've done. But across and diagonal from the intersection, this is the Westphal Apartments. And these were built in 1910, and today's story happened in 1930, which means this is the same apartment where those events tragically occurred. So in one of these units lived 43-year-old Alma Mullins. And she lived with her 8-year-old daughter, Ida Mullins was the mother, and she lived with her 8-year-old daughter, Alma Mullins. Alma was the daughter. And they lived in this apartment. I'm not sure which floor, but they lived here at the Westfall. And Ida was not having a good year 1930. And it is October 22nd, 1930. Alma and Ida are home together here. And there was a guy named William Haight, or Height, I think it was Haight, H-A-I-G-H-T. And he ran this apartment during that time. And he obviously knew Ida and Alma, as they were residents here. And shortly before this date, October 22nd, he spoke to Ida, and Ida told him that she had recently seen her doctor. And the prognosis, it was never explained exactly what was wrong with her, what ailment she had. But she told Haight that the doctor's prognosis was she had maybe about 1 year left to live. So that's something horribly painful to try to process. I don't even know if I could process without absolutely freaking out. And that wasn't the only problem in the Mullins home. In addition to Ida's medical situation, semi-left in mystery as it was, both her and Alma, good Lord, were living here, and they were in pretty tight financial straits. They were really struggling financially. That was something else that Ida had made known. So she was having medical issues, they were having financial issues, and they were really struggling to get by. And what's interesting, I saw one of the local newspapers said that she'd recently, very recently, married a guy by the name of Mullins, and that's where she got that last name. Like, they had just recently been married. And I'm like, did she know about her medical condition before they got married? Did he marry her after finding out about that? Because, it doesn't really matter much to this story, but I'm just interested. And because her husband, where she got the name Mullins, they said that he was working and mostly staying in Canby, Oregon, which is 30 miles off this way. Just kind of, you're starting to get out of the city, and it's a little bit more rural, and these little towns just kind of pop up here and there. So, I guess he wasn't actually living here with them, but he was married to her. Were they married and already having an estrangement? There really wasn't an explanation for why it seemed he may have not been living here with them, or why they were in such horrible financial situations if he was getting good work out of Canby. Maybe the work wasn't as good as we were all led to believe. But that was an interesting twist that there really wasn't there was just a lot of stuff left to mystery in terms of this man that Ida had apparently recently married and who had a job. And it's 1930 and they're just living out of an apartment. It wasn't like they had a mansion to take care of. It seems like they should have been able... granted, it was the first full year of the Great Depression. I don't know how much that was hitting him, but again, this guy seemed to be getting work in Canby. Why were they in such horrible financial conditions? It just, I don't know, it leaves me pondering. So, whatever the circumstances, it seemed, a lot of road rage in this city today. It seemed by October 22nd, 1930, Ida Mullins had likely, this is the presumption we have to reach because no one was there to ask her who survived, but it appears Ida had pretty much reached the end of her rope. She figured she was probably going to be dead before too long, and life was already getting extremely difficult to live. So while she was home alone here with her 8-year-old daughter Alma, she turned the gas on from the stove that they had. Didn't actually light the stove, just turned the gas on. And as I understand it, the two just stayed in here. I don't know, if Alma realized what was happening, what her mother had done. And she was the younger of the two, so you think maybe she would succumb to that first, but Ida was also in poor health. So it's hard to say who would have succumbed first. But yeah, they just stayed in there as the gas poured into and around their apartment, and it killed them. They were poisoned by the gas. And it would be hours before they were discovered in the apartment. William Haight, who again was the guy that ran this place, who I mentioned earlier, he started smelling the faint smell of gas in the building. And, immediately responded. You don't ignore the smell of gas in your apartment. Could blow the whole place up. So he started to roam around, try to track where the epicenter of where the gas was coming from, and it narrowed it down to the Mullins apartment, and knocked on the door trying to figure out what's wrong. Nobody answers. He ends up smashing. Well, there's two versions of the story given. One was that he smashed the door in, and another one was that he had like a pass key that worked on all the door locks, and he used that to unlock their door. And maybe that's what happened. He could have been so frantic and run trying to figure out where the gas was coming from that he would forget something like a pass key. But whatever the case, he managed to gain entry into the Mullins apartment and detected, like, obviously this is where the source of the gas was coming from. And what is most tragic is he found Alma, and Ida and Alma, and this is what makes me think that Alma died first, or Ida just made them sit like this. But when they discovered the two dead, they'd both been dead for several hours by that point. And when they were found, Alma was being cradled in Ida's arms. Ida just wrapped her arms around Ada, and they just laid down and died together. Just like one of the worst kinds of tragedies. And I can understand that Ida Mullins was probably not in a great state of mind, but this was a murder. She intentionally killed her child. There's any number of reasons. A lot of them ain't great. Maybe she thought they were so broke that her daughter would just end up in an orphanage and lead a miserable life. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, she didn't have the right to kill her 8-year-old. If she wanted to kill herself, that's one thing, knowing that she wasn't going to maybe be around much longer, but you don't take your 8-year-old child with you, especially in a way like that. You just don't do that. So there's no question in my mind whether this was, murder, accident, manslaughter. This was intentional murder. This wasn't just a suicide. This was a murder-suicide. What this mother did was horrible. I don't care the circumstances of her health, or even less significant, her financial state. So just a truly horrible tragedy. And there's a few of these peppered into this series. These stories specifically about mothers not really doing well physically or emotionally, and snapping and killing their children. There was a woman who lived in North Portland that I did a video on. Her first name was Rose, I think. I can't remember her last name. And she killed her little son during this panicked period in her life where she thought, like, these guys that her husband had to fire, like, she thought they were gonna, like, come and, like, blow their house up and all this stuff. And she was in just kind of a catatonic state before killing her kid. And there was another woman, I think, lived on, like, Southeast Stark and 27th, in that area that I did a video on, where a mom just kind of opened fire on her husband and then killed their son. And these were, one of those was in like 1912, I think the other one was like 1915. So they were all kind of happening during this same time period. These tragedies of mothers killing their children, which I think, again, society has, I think, a much more difficult time comprehending a mother killing their child than a father, since, historically we deem, mothers are the nurturing ones, and the mothers are the ones that give birth to the children. Why would they ever kill their children? But it happens sometimes, and it's, at least a few examples I've seen, it's happened in utterly horrific ways. Gunshots. The one woman I know, I think, shot her child, but then also poured like carbolic acid on it, which like literally just burns your flesh away. And in this case, just turn the gas on the stove and just slowly wait to die. I told you, be ready. This is a dark one. From the general area of Portland State, where you kind of have these kind of cool old buildings like these apartments and stuff. kind of peppered in with everything else. But anyway, that is the story of the murder-suicide of Ida and Alma Mullins at the Westphal Apartments at 5th and Hall, again in the area that's mostly been overtaken by University of Portland buildings, the campus. So hope you're not feeling really depressed now. I still thank you guys so much for stopping by, for supporting this series, for supporting this channel, for supporting me. And if you haven't done it yet, or you're new to the channel and you want to help out, remember to like the videos, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. I'm trying to post at least twice a week there. Various forms of content, lots of extra stuff you can only see if you join up with my Patreon today. The link to that is in the description with this video, as well as the links to my Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Reddit subreddit pages. And it's very quiet in the Portland State Universe today. I mean, I know it's the summer, but still, it is very quiet. Frighteningly quiet. Anyway, all that said, one more time, thank you so much for stopping by, taking in today's video. This has been Steve the Amateur Historian with another episode of Historic Murders of Portland.